Happy Monday, everybody. Thanks for checking into the Traded Black podcast. I am your host, Shad Deals. Thanks for checking in as well. Thanks to all of our audience who checked in last night. Thought that was a great show. We kick off this week. Dan Ahrens, MSOs. He'll be in. We'll talk about some of the lighter volume that's taken place and some of the price action we've seen since post 420. Relatively flat for the industry as well. Curaleaf, their CEO, Matt Darin, about to join us to talk about their latest acquisition and some New Mexico seizures taking place. This story is confusing, but our own Anthony Varell is very well versed in this space, understands what's going on. So let's welcome him in. Good to see you, sir. How are things?
Good to see you. Just getting hit with some rain. It's absolutely storming outside, which is nice. My plants need water.
Tough life in Florida. It's raining. You'll be fine. But how much rain are you anticipating?
I have no idea. But it's the first time it's rained in a couple of weeks. So yeah. I'll take it.
Gladly take it. Well, last night's show, that was a good one. We had our own professor, Bill McNarlin, on to talk a little bit about the industry as a whole, some of the excise tax in Canada, amongst a few other things. But here we are, fresh new week. He helped with some of the notes here today. So let's kick off things into the wire, headlining the biggest headlines in cannabis. We're going to have, as I said, Matt Darin from Curaleaf on in just a moment. I actually jumped the gun for a minute. We are going to get into the wire eventually, but we got to kill a little bit of time with Matt Darin, who's going to join us in probably about 2 to 3 minutes. But what we probably could do just to start things off, let's touch on Dutchie for a second. When we talked about that, I know last Saturday was obviously 420 for a lot of people within the industry. All was well, I think, for the space. I think there was a lot of attention, but their software system basically crashed during 420. Not necessarily a great thing with any business owner, but one thing's for sure, this industry is alive and well and is growing substantially to experience something like that. But all is well, I think. As much as you look at the headlines and say something like this and you think, oh, you fear the worst and like what's happened, I think for the most part, all is well, knowing that, something you don't want to happen, but the industry is growing.
No, I mean, it wasn't good to see, but I mean, it was, sometimes you need to, I guess, strength check these platforms. I mean, Emily Paxia was reporting via headset, I think leading up to 420 on Thursday and Friday, that, I mean, retail sales were seeing a pretty high velocity ahead of the holiday, if we want to call it that. I mean, 420 seemed like it went mainstream this year. There was a lot of talk about it. I mean, people now are publicly speaking about consuming cannabis, which wasn't the case. I mean, 1, 2, even 3 years ago. And I mean, I was reading that there was a dispensary in New York that actually lost up to about $80,000 in sales on Saturday due to the outages with Dutchie. But I mean, it brings up a pretty good point. I mean, there's a lot of, yeah. It brings up a pretty good point. I mean, there's a lot of legacy tech players in the cannabis space. Cannabis has been a fringe industry for some time now. So you're not seeing like Adobe, Salesforce, Microsoft make these custom tailored solutions for the industry that are playing off of their platforms. I mean, Dutchie's great, but in a descheduled world, or once cannabis really starts to go mainstream, I mean, I really do see someone like a Salesforce coming in and just standardizing the seed to sale tracking software, standardizing the customer experience, Adobe getting into marketing automation and consumer loyalty, because cannabis is going to need to be able to be piped into the mainstream. If you're a marketer, I mean, you should be privy to the data sets that we're seeing in this industry, just like any other marketer, because it is a CPG business. And I mean, like we said, it is going mainstream. So, I mean, while this was good, I mean, I think it also leads people in another direction as to maybe we need to up the tech layer and the tools that we're working with in the industry currently.
It's growing rapidly. That's for sure. Another thing I wanted to bring up, in case you missed it last night, you talked about mainstream. Dave Portnoy and the Barstool Gents, they're getting involved with THC beverages, which is as we touched on lightly last night with Bill, was just more or less just an indication as to where I think sports marketing and this industry being beverages is going to be, I think, the first foot in the door, because, consumption, smoking, as we said last night, is probably not something that's ideal. It's very controversial, to say the least, whether you're for or against it. I'm sure there's people a lot of for it that follow this industry closely. But this gives you an idea as to where this industry has the biggest growth potential, knowing that you're getting outside of that fringe market, so to speak. And I can see tons of these podcasts that are garnering, like the Pat McAfee's, Barstools of the world, that attract these massive audiences right now, are only going to grow and start to dive more into this space, which is, I think, exciting for the industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's easy. It's not intrusive. I mean, you can put it on a desk and just have the logo and have the brand affiliation there within the program. Beverages are easy. People, I don't think, are going to see beverages and be like, "Ooh, that's like a stoner, like they're smoking, like that's cannabis."
Yeah.
That stigma's still there around smoking joints and around combusting flower and the other inhalation methods to consuming cannabis. I feel like beverages people are going to find as pretty benign. It's an easy form factor. It's an unassuming form factor. A lot of these cannabis beverages are very well branded. Can, which is the business that's doing the partnership with Barstool, is branded as a social tonic. Like I said last night, they've got their high boys, their regular dosages, and their low boys, which is, I think, 2, 5, and 1 milligram of THC per serving. So they're very mildly dosed. And like I had said last night, the 5 milligrammers are about $6.75 per drink. So for someone wanting to catch a buzz, I mean, that's expensive.
Yeah.
A $7 for a 5 milligram dose of THC, whether it's a beverage or whether it's anything, I mean, that's expensive.
Yeah.
The sunburn edibles that we were comping it to last night, you're looking at about $2.50 per dose.
Yeah. We're going to pivot here right now. We're waiting for Matt Darin, CEO of Cannabis, CEO of Curaleaf. It's about to come on in just a moment. This is Into the Wire, TDR Traded Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales, along with Anthony Varell. For all you people looking where El Guap is, he's actually on his honeymoon in Scotland, driving around in a Volkswagen Beetle. So I'm sure he's checked out for 2 weeks. Good for him. He'll be back in a couple of weeks. So just giving you guys just a quick update. Christopher Brady, as I said in my comments earlier, one day you're going to be right. Scheduling change, please. I think we all agree with that. So as we wait, we're going to have Dan Ahrens on from AdvisorShares as well. Just talk a little bit about price action over the last week or so, some of his big takeaways for the Benzinga conference. But let's go back into the wire. If you can bring that up, Ahrens, and real quick, what we'll do is we'll bring up New Mexico. This is an interesting story. There's been a rash of cannabis seizures that are taking place by the Customs and Border Protection, otherwise known as the CBP. The seizures have taken place from Feb 14th up until last week, April 18th. This is where agents have intercepted regulated marijuana products at the Alamo Gordo and Las Cruces stations, which are operated by the CBP. This is a very interesting story. There's a lot of moving parts here, Anthony. You brought up some good points before we started here today, but can you explain why this is happening and how some of these jurisdictions, for that part, are built out within the state?
Yeah, so I mean, this is unique to New Mexico. It's not happening in California, and it's not happening in Arizona, which is cause for concern, I would think, for the New Mexico industry at large. But these CBP checkpoints are federally governed. They operate on federal law. I mean, Florida, it's a medical market. I'm a medical patient. I can buy cannabis. I can consume cannabis. If I go to Fort Lauderdale Airport right now and I have cannabis on me, it's considered illegal. The airport operates under federal jurisdiction as well. Cannabis, unfortunately, in the eyes of the federal government, is a Schedule I narcotic on the Controlled Substances Act and is illegal. Unfortunately, that's what these cannabis businesses are coming into. That gets stopped at these checkpoints. It's not every single cannabis business is getting stopped. It's not that they're predatorily looking for cannabis businesses. It's trucks and vans and vehicles that do get stopped at these CBP checkpoints. If they do find cannabis, they confiscate it. However, I do think it's also very important to note no driver and no employee that has been detained has been arrested. And under federal law, cannabis is illegal and it could result in an arrest.
But they're also not providing any paperwork for these stops as well. It seems a little suspicious from what I was reading on MJ Daily.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's overstepping. I think it's definitely overstepping. I mean, maybe it's guys that are these CBP agents that are bored and they just want to enforce these rules and regs because they can. Maybe they have an axe to grind. It's all conjecture and hearsay. No one really knows. But the fact of the matter is, a couple $100,000 in cannabis has been confiscated. these CBP checkpoints are federal and they're governed by federal law. Cannabis is federally illegal. We're working to get it to ease these pain points that we see in the industry, and no one's been arrested. I don't condone anything that's going on in New Mexico. It sounds a little bit sketchy, to say the least.
You think?
But no one's in jail. No one's been arrested. And it's yet to be determined if the cannabis has actually been returned to any of the operators that have had product confiscated.
Yeah, Corey, you bring up a good point. It was a major concern when California first legalized, particularly in San Diego. Can only imagine. The dank informer, they are 100% seizing the cash and not reporting it. They only report the cannabis products.
I wouldn't be surprised. I've heard government agencies doing that as well.
Sounds
so
shady.
That's not out of the ordinary.
Before we get into the next one, Matt Wilhelm actually writes, can Anthony expand on what he was saying last week about Planet 13 and their Florida expansion? If you want to touch on that real quick.
I don't really remember what I was saying in regards to it. Obviously, they're coming to Florida. I mean, I don't know how they're going to do in Florida. I'm assuming they're going to spin up a superstore in Miami, as we've spoken to the top brass, and I think that was one of their main locations.
Yep.
It's going to be hard to compete in Florida. I mean, VitaCann was not a very popular asset within the Florida mix. I don't know what they have as far as cultivation capacity and what their infrastructure looks like. Planet 13 is a great brand. I don't know. No one knows if Planet 13 works outside of Las Vegas. That dispensary for them makes about $100 million annually. For me, $100 million business is pretty attractive. I don't know if I'd be looking to make my life more difficult outside of that. But I mean, Florida is going to be a very competitive and hard state for people to enter.
Yeah.
I'm assuming they're going to take the 30 plus dispensaries, rebrand everything to Planet 13, and then start bringing product online as they go. I'll be watching how they progress through the OMMU reports on a weekly basis, but I don't really know if it's going to give them too much lift or how they're going to be able to compete and really start to take market share in Florida, unless they have a bunch of exotic brand licensing deals that they're planning to bring to the state, because Florida, it's a very hard market.
Yeah, definitely a destination company. $100 million in Vegas. That's big numbers, to say the least.
There we have Matt.
Yes, we'll get into the other Into the Wires in just a moment. But again, we're pivoting in real time. Let's bring in the CEO of Curaleaf, Matt Darin, back to the podcast. Good to see you, sir. How are things?
Things are great. How you guys doing? Good to see you again.
Good to see you last week. Yeah.
Person, absolutely.
Anthony, just tell me, you poor people from Florida, you're going to see a little bit of rain today. Oh, that's very unfortunate. Anyway, listen,
rainy season.
Let's jump right into it. Big acquisition, obviously, here today that was announced, where you basically acquired a Canadian company, Northern Green Canada, otherwise known as NGC, vertically integrated Canadian licensed producer that focuses and expands and strengthens basically your international footprint. Reasons why is through its EU GMP certification. So we understand why this deal obviously got put into place, but how was it put together, I guess? And I guess most importantly to your investors, what's the next steps as you continue to grow into your international footprint?
Yeah, so this is really a continuation of our strategy, bringing our products and brands, throughout the world now and distributing them globally. Northern Green has been one of the best producers of cannabis in Canada. We've been doing business with them, through our German operations here for a period of time, and really made a lot of sense for us to bring them into the Curaleaf family and bring this in-house. And so it's really a continuation of the strategy to build this global supply chain of high quality flower and processed products. The EU GMP certification is huge because that's required in many of these European countries, and just made a ton of sense for everybody. And we're really excited about it.
Slow and steady, right?
So is this an accretive acquisition where you basically bought out one of the pieces of your supply chain that was just servicing the business in Germany?
That's right. Northern Green did business with many different companies, but we were one of those. And and look, from it's got a lot of different benefits to it, like ensuring this supply of this high quality indoor flower that we have a number of different outlets for, throughout the world, whether it's in Europe and Germany and Poland, does give us access into Australia and New Zealand, which are new markets for us and that we're evaluating, as we move forward, but could be exciting additions as we really build out these global brands. But also from a margin standpoint, we view this as very margin accretive to, kind of bring this as part of our vertical supply chain. This is one of the real lessons that we've learned in the U.S. over the last decade is, having the certainty and the margin profile of this vertical supply chain is one of the keys to success. So it really checks all those boxes for us.
Is Northern Green, are they currently exporting to Australia? Or do they just, they are. Okay.
Yep, they've been doing business there, and that's an opportunity that we are evaluating. We've got a lot of demand in Europe, for this, but we certainly want to continue to execute on the business plan to build global brands, and entering those markets could be interesting.
Speaking of Germany, I know earnings are coming up in about 3 weeks from now. Any color you could share how Germany's shaping up after Pillar 1 was implemented and we finally got the vote passed and the news in the EU?
Yeah, so it's off to a fast start. I think we expected that, or knew it would take a little bit of time to ramp as you have Pillar 1 that's now launched as of April 1st. But early results are very positive. At Benzinga, talked to some of the other players in the market as well, and I think everybody's seeing very positive results in the first 3 weeks, and I think that's only going to grow as awareness continues to build and that. But we're pretty encouraged, with the early signs. It's I think exceeding our expectations.
Matt, how would you compare your international footprint today versus, say, other companies in the space? Because on paper, it looks like you're definitely a lot more advanced than most companies, if not all. But, what's the statement, I guess, that you want to say in the company today with this acquisition and where you are based, when you're doing comparisons to others when it comes to your international footprint?
So I think we're building something unique. I think the supply chain that we are building in tandem with a lot of what we've developed in the U.S. over the last decade, I think it's unique. Having the campus that we have for cultivation and now processing in Portugal, which we think is really the ideal place to grow cannabis in Europe, and where we're continuing to invest, and then adding on to it what we're going to be able to bring to the table with Northern Green. I think we're really excited about building that supply chain, and then the distribution that we're building. In the countries you talked about quite a bit, leading market share in the UK, in Germany, and now entering Poland and a number of other markets. I think it's pretty unique and something that we still have more work to do to continue to build out, but we're well on our way to making progress.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of going through Northern Green's website today. So they do have a Canadian footprint too, as well. Are they specifically medically focused? Their website was very medical patient forward when I was going through it.
Yeah, there's been a medical focus and really a focus on exporting, and especially into Europe and through a number of different partners, including through Curaleaf. Yep.
Okay.
Well, listen, I know you're busy, but I wanted to get just a quick update to our viewers. But nice work here today. And as usual, good seeing you last week in Florida. But let's please keep in touch and obviously tell the team that we say hi. And fingers crossed, we get some news from Washington. That was the big rumor last week. Right?
We had a great 420, good momentum the industry. Now we just need some news out of DC. So how
was 420 for the footprint? I'm assuming it was from everybody. I heard it was crazy.
It was a great day. I think, overall, really, really positive. I got to spend a lot of time in our stores in Florida on Friday and Saturday, and just the positive buzz and energy and traffic, excitement, was there. Having it on a Saturday did not hurt for sure. So
I bet.
Have it on a weekend. But yeah, overall, it was a great day, and I think everybody's got a nice boost in their step coming off the weekend.
And we got the president and vice president actually on social media at 420, actually tweeting out about cannabis reform. And you can laugh all you want, but name me the last time that a president and vice president has actually put out a tweet at 420 on 420.
I certainly caught that at 420 there. So,
Yeah.
I don't believe in coincidences too much. We'll see,
No.
until it happens. But I thought that was very interesting for them, for the president and vice president to come out at 420. So, in the meantime, we'll keep our heads down and keep working. But I think good signs ahead.
Stone crab on me. What's the place next door at the event we were at last week? What's that place called? Billy's?
Billy's,
Billy's.
definitely. That place was good. So, yeah,
Funny.
definitely got to check that out again.
Yeah. Well, listen, good seeing you, and let's keep in touch, okay?
Great. Thanks, guys. Have a
All
good
right.
one.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Matt.
sir.
Liked how he actually made that comment. It's not by coincidence, but
To what?
just as far as like the vice president.
Oh, no. Not at all. It's actually funny because there was I think in 2018, somebody was like, so what Canadian LP, because we were talking about M&A, and they were like, what Canadian LPs are going to buy which MSOs? And I was like, you need to flip it around and be looking at which MSOs which MSO is going to be the first to buy a Canadian LP. And the Curaleaf did it. I mean, they were the first to go into Europe and make an acquisition via EMAC. Which was another company that I was in, and then they picked up Northern Green. They're doing a hell of a job on expanding the international footprint via M&A. So
I hear you, the Dank.
It's going to be interesting to see how they progress.
Curaleaf, hold my beer, or hold my joint in this case. We're going to bring on Dan Ahrens in just a moment. There was one more thing that I wanted to bring up. Ahrens, can you bring up Into the Wire just again? We want to bring up one more headline. I think it was, if I'm correct, the progress that's being made amongst the
Progressive Caucus.
Yeah, like I wanted to bring that up because they unveiled, basically, from what I'm read, a new legislative agenda that actually could be helpful if Democrats were to keep the Senate in the upcoming fall election, along with retaking the House. So what's the latest from what you gather from based on this latest announcement, Anthony?
So this is Pramila Jayapal, it's Ilhan Omar, and a bunch of other super progressives on the left.
Yeah.
I clenched my fist when I saw this headline this morning. They basically said, look, here's a bill, here's legislation, cannabis legalization, descheduling. You know how we're going to miraculously get this done? If the president, the Senate, and the House are all turned blue.
Yes.
Don't tell me that. Don't give me a carrot and say, well, we can get this done if you change the paradigm within all of these houses of government. To me, that is no way to get anything done. I don't even want to hear it. It's just not realistic. Like we've been told tons of times, hey, this could get passed if this happens. It's just not realistic in any way. So, I mean, this is in one ear and out the other.
Yeah, I hear
it's
you.
great that another caucus and that another internal branch within the government, within the Congress, is speaking about marijuana. Great, but don't tell me, hey, this is awesome, but you got to do this for us first. Do something for us instead of us doing something for you.
We've heard so many hypothetical equations over the years that, but again, it's we understand this, we understand the space, but for those outside of it, don't understand it. It's top line information that may gather some interest amongst other voters outside of this. But you're right. No more hypothetical. Let's just get some real conversations. And most importantly, let's just get rescheduling done.
And one thing that I did see from the weekend that I wanted to point out, Weed Street 420 on Twitter. I mean, he looked at the actual views that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's tweets did.
What'd it get?
Joe Biden's tweet on 420 did 3.4 million views. Kamala Harris's 420 tweet did 6.8 million views. And then Joe Biden's second 420 tweet did 2.2 million views. So that did 12.4 million views total.
Thorsten, right? What's this 420
They're,
tweet? Seeing what they accomplished for the sector. That was a real joke. Yeah.
They accomplished nothing. Like I said, stop being cute. It was good. It's great to get recognition, but follow up the talk with action.
Yep.
Please. But anybody that wants to say that cannabis is not going to be an electoral issue, like cannabis does numbers on social media. They're going to notice that whenever they talk about it, it reverberates throughout the entire platform on social media. They're going to take advantage of it sooner or later.
Yeah, well, it leaves me hopeful when you see people like Matt come on and basically say it's not by coincidence. Like, clearly these guys are having conversations. I know that we are as well, but at the end of the day, you never saw this before. A president and a vice president commenting on 420. Like, these are actual, like, look, we've come to the dance. Now let's just get the party started. And that's the big cross point that we're at right now. And they have to obviously act on this. And it's an election year. And based on a lot of these results, as you've said on Twitter and social media, and the amount of tension and popularity it gets, it's clearly an indication that this indeed is going to attract a lot of young voters, which they desperately need. Otherwise, this is going to win Mr. Trump in a landslide. All right, that wraps up Into the Wire. Coming up in just a moment, we're going to have Dan Ahrens on from AdvisorShares. Just a quick reminder, please continue to bring in these comments. Thank you very much. Smash that like button. Leave all kinds of comments. As usual, as I said before, subscribe to our Baked In newsletter. I'm Shad Dales, on with Anthony Varell. The more action and more interaction that we have from you, obviously the chance of this is going viral. So please leave lots of likes, leave lots of comments, and make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. All right, Ahrens, cue up the music. Time for segment number. Happy Monday, sir. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right.
Good to see you last week in Florida.
Of course, you guys said
supporting that
showing the gear
conference. Look at that, huh? Props to Jason Raznick, Patrick Lane, Elliot Lane, all the people at Benzinga. They put on a top-notch show as we continue to echo and announce from last week. But some decent people that was there. I found it was a little bit different from years past down at the Fontainebleau in Miami. This was all business. People were in, they were out.
Right.
Most people I spoke to found it extremely productive. So our viewers that are watching this are probably saying, okay, why should I care about that? So if you were to communicate that to our audience as to who is there, why it's important, what would you say?
Almost all the top executives of all the top companies are boots on the ground at that conference. They're people that I talk to semi-regularly anyway, but it's a little bit different when you can get eyeball to eyeball. And I had a couple sit downs with some very good companies and some other chairmen and CEOs I just got to say hi with, have a nice dinner with, some things like that. But Matt was there, as you just had as a guest. Boris was there. Jason Wild's there. David Goubert of Air is there. A huge group from Air was there on the ground.
Yeah.
It's hard to say who wasn't there. So a very good conference and a lot of the same attitudes and messages. And I know you guys already talked about this on another show quite a bit, so we don't need to beat Benzinga into the ground. But a big takeaway for me was that we didn't have anything concrete by last week, by 420 day, right? We don't have the rescheduling announcement. We don't have a real safer banking bill again. And you know what? Everybody's pretty good. Everybody's pretty good, pretty positive. And the word is it's all coming. And it's all coming, not mostly because we've heard that it's coming, but we haven't heard anything to the negative, have we?
That's important. No negativity at all in this year's conference. And from some of the rumors, obviously we have to keep things just completely confidential, and some of the people that we heard certain things from, but these are very reputable sources. I don't want to speculate and be known as this pumper. We're just telling it like it is, from where we went, who we spoke to, and what we heard.
Yeah, no real even solid rumors that we can expand on about timing, but everybody seems to think things are coming. That's
one thing I will say. No one knows anything about timing. Many people believe positivity that we will get rescheduling, but I've heard all kinds of things. It's all over the map. 420. Well, 420's passed. We have nothing. Summer recess.
What do you think of the what do you think of the volume the last week or so, Dan? Seems like it's been depressed on a lot of the underlyings. It's like, or do you think
Yeah.
they're in consolidation mode? Do you think people are just like taking a wait and see approach? But I mean, I've been looking at the volumes of some of these names and like laughing almost on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's pretty anemic in all the underlying names. I don't know how to say this, but I'm almost a little bored today on a day like today because I don't have money to play with. I'm not really trading, managing the fund today. Some days I try to pick at this stock, pick at that stock. I see something on sale, and there's things I can do.
Yeah,
Maybe add a little bit of alpha to the fund, but no, the volume is not there. We have a lot of people treading water, wait and see mode. The fund's volume, I see some chatter about, well, the fund's trading this much and the underlyings are only trading this much, but the fund's performance is only a reflection of the underlyings that it owns. Nothing more, nothing less. So no, there's not any great conspiracy theory on what's going on in the fund. The fund is just the reflection of the stocks, and the stocks aren't trading a whole hell of a lot. And on a day like today, there's not much I can do about it. It's so much of a wait and see mode.
Well,
I mean, which is almost it's a net I mean, I'm not going to say it's a net positive because some of the price action has been to the downside. But I mean, they're just like grinding sideways. If people were giving up hope, or if people didn't think that what's coming was real, or the narrative, like some people like to say on Twitter, was at least to the upside, I mean, I think people would be selling and cutting bait.
Yeah. And, 420 has come and gone. The market took a little bit of a dump in the last 5 minutes. And it just happens. That's because there was more people selling than buying.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the fund. The fund did nothing in the last 5 minutes, and it didn't have inflows into the fund and all that kind of stuff. But
I mean, the tape was pretty clean today.
Yeah, it is just grinding, like you said. I use the term, treading water while we're waiting. But
look, I look at it as this is all driven by retail, and I think a lot of people are hopeful that we're leading up to like 420. And now that the day is, I would have been shocked if anything were announced around 420. But now that date is like passed, I think like we can look at things more level-headed. I think people are going to start to get a little frustrated because they're just waiting and waiting and waiting. We do start to flirt with that whole term sell in May and go away. As we all know, its volume dries up quite a bit in the summer months leading into the cannabis space. But again, this
commonly does. I'm going to give you a but in this here. Everybody thinks that we're still getting this rescheduling announcement. And I've said before, the rescheduling announcement is just a rescheduling announcement because there's going to be so much paperwork and so many steps to follow it. And we've heard that it has to come some decent amount of time before November to have an impact. So I don't think it's going to be that as boring a summer as we've had in the stock market and the cannabis market.
Noah actually brings up a good point. Remember, Don says they will likely release it quietly, and I believe him. I believe that too, 100%.
Yeah, I believe that, and there's a hell of a lot of headlines out there right now to bury cannabis under. I can tell you that. I'm not going to get into any of them, but there's not a shortage of things that you could bring up to bury cannabis.
I will say
it's looking like people believe it's coming soon.
Yeah, there's going to be a SAM and all those other organizations are going to keep up their messaging and even get more aggressive. I will say that you and me and everybody else listening here are insanely frustrated at our politicians and government bureaucrats.
Absolutely.
So everybody listening, keep up the pressure, but don't be a dick. Don't yell at them.
One thing we brought up actually late last week was what podcast was that? I forget who we were talking to on Friday, Anthony, about do we have the right messaging that's taking place? It
was Don.
Yeah, it was with Don. You're right.
It was Don. I was talking about Jesse Ventura being on TV, primetime CNN. He cuts Aaron Burnett off and goes, "Let's get to the real point on why I'm on your show today. Cannabis." And then just gives this half-assed bullshit. Why is the DEA making this decision, or why does the DEA have the authority? Meanwhile, he's a cannabis advocate with skin in the game and a business. And it's like, use that 5 minutes to talk up the science and data-driven approach with the 255-page document the HHS did. Talk about veterans. Talk about something. Talk about something positive. There's a lot of talking points. Don't sit there and bitch about why the DEA shouldn't be making this decision. That's going to get us nowhere.
Not what you say, but how you say it.
Yeah, we do have a lot of people that can say the correct messaging.
Oh, yeah.
And I've never talked to Jesse Ventura. I've never seen Jesse Ventura at a conference that I'm involved in.
No.
So, come on, you guys have worked in the media. You know the process that CNN and others do to get guests on there. It's there's not a organized thought process.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I'm most interested to see what Sam does going into an actual announcement, because, I mean, they're getting, like, I follow a lot of them because I like to just listen and see what they're saying. I mean, one of the doctors that's an advocate for Sam today, a doctor, was basically saying that the Columbine shooters were influenced by marijuana, and that's what people should be focusing on 420, not celebrating cannabis. That was his actual argument. This man
a doctor of what? A doctor of what?
Of medicine. He's a practicing physician.
But here we are talking about, like, there's a reason why CNN, to your point, Dan, goes after Jesse Ventura. Like, why are we not going after certain executives within the cannabis space to provide proper education? It's a name. He's going to say outlandish things. And here we are 72 hours later with Anthony saying, cuts off Aaron Burnett. And now it's
exactly
coffee talk, and which happens with this industry over and over again, is it's misled. The only way that we get this through is that we just got to continue to push the narrative forward, which is why we're committed to obviously going there once a month. But, you know, I think what's going to be important as we gear up to go more and more is just coming up with different strategies. Like, great, okay, when is safe? When's rescheduling going to happen? But we got to get more in depth and more pointed questions the next time we go, now that we have the experience under our belt. But what are some of the things that you guys think would be helpful if we were to get the right messaging right in Washington?
So strategy for the next trip, and I mean, I don't know how close we're going to go, but I mean, obviously that May 10th date is lurking around with the FAA, but it would be take a hybrid approach and be asking the lawmakers what their view is on the stablecoin bill, as well as the SAFE bill, with the prospects that they could potentially get attached to that. Because I'll keep saying this until it gets shot down. SAFE gets attached to that stablecoin bill, it's probably going through with an above average percentage of success. That bill will get through. And I think SAFE actually, I don't want to start conjecturing about SAFE, but I think SAFE's actually got a pretty good chance here.
It actually does. And I've joked that so many people just don't want to talk about SAFE. And it's because we got burnt so many times on it. But no, I agree with you 100%, Anthony. And again, Don Murphy is a person that we, lean towards for the correct information on this thing. And yeah, I think it has an excellent chance of getting attached there. So for anybody listening, remember what you guys told me. Your average congressperson doesn't know anything about the rescheduling. It's not in their sandbox. And they don't deal with that.
And for those that do support it, they want to bury it with other bills that they're passing. So this is a great example, to your point, Anthony, as to how that's just another example of tying that in to the number one reason, the headline bill that will grab the attention, which is stablecoin, which is more specific and geared towards crypto than it is for obviously the cannabis space. But Noah's point, maybe this is an announcement where they announce the things to go quietly. And
SAFE will be loud. SAFE would be
loud afterwards.
SAFE won't be quiet.
Yeah.
So, but still, everybody needs to departmentalize that. If you're calling your congressperson SAFE attached to the stable coin, that is infinitely important. Completely different thing is the rescheduling. And it's interesting, I've been seeing these statistics. We've all been seeing statistics again. What percentage of the US population supports adult use or states' rights, or at least medical? It's the numbers are getting higher and higher,
over
even on the
70%.
Republican side. Yeah, look at the Republican support for at least medical cannabis.
Yeah.
The numbers are sky high. So we still have a disconnect between our wonderful people in DC not finishing what they've talked about yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Contrary to what the public thinks. So everybody just needs to keep it up.
Yeah. James Bond writes, "This is the speculative echo chamber of hopes and dreams."
So I mean, I think he's completely right. He couldn't be more right in that assumption.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking about rescheduling. We're talking about safe banking. Would I put capital to work right now based off of the notions of safe and or rescheduling coming in excess of what I already have in the market? Absolutely not. I mean, we're talking complete speculation right now. The government's failed us. The DEA, we don't know what's going on. I mean, do I think in a vacuum that these things are going to happen? I hope they do.
Yeah.
But I know just as much as the next person that we're probably going to be let down by Chuck.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we're not sitting here for cheerleaders saying, "Hey, you need to believe us and this is going to happen," because that's not the business that we're in. But I mean, to sit here and talk about it, I wouldn't say that we're cheerleading. These all have momentum right now, but they don't have momentum and they don't have true momentum until we see action. And there's absolutely no action being taken right now, except for a bunch of politicians tweeting and saying things in the media.
Gord asked a question more or less just like, what does quietly mean? We've had indications from Don in the past that there'd be announcement like end of day Friday or even on the weekend. That's what we mean by quietly. Also, and this is kind of like I've had mixed signals. If SAFE passes, can uplisting start or does rescheduling have to happen before uplisting? I'm hearing that obviously rescheduling takes place, 280E goes away right away. However, the uplisting process, I can't even speculate off of that. Like it doesn't really answer the question. This isn't descheduled. It's still not federally legalized. So I still think that a lot of exchanges are going to be very skeptical. But in the event safe banking were to pass, Dan, what then happens to the process of uplisting? Can like that begin, or is it still the same status quo where if it's federally illegal, they can't list?
In the various safe banking acts that have been through the House and so on, there have been put in their safe harbor language.
Correct.
That would help with the uplisting. A very important thing, though, Shad, is you are absolutely correct. Banking is about banking. It doesn't go directly to uplisting. Technically, there is nothing preventing the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ from listing one of those companies right now.
Yeah.
There's not a law per se. They just choose not to. It's a conservative route. By the way, I'm having dinner with the New York Stock Exchange this week. So what do you think I'm talking about mostly? Cannabis.
So what day are you having dinner with them?
I can't tell you.
I was going to say, sounds like MSOS Thursday this week.
The uplisting, I mean, I'll just go out on a limb and say the uplisting potential is probably the most opaque talking point we have in the industry. I've talked to a couple of people and I still don't really know what the hell's going on. But from my understanding, it's going to take FinCEN reform as well as some sort of AML adjustments.
You're absolutely correct, Anthony. That's what I was going to mention. So what happens?
FinCEN's the panacea if we really want to talk about the catalyst that's going to get them uplisted.
But see, if we get safe banking, and it has a little bit of that safe harbor language in there that should be in there, that is going to trigger them to have to fix FinCEN for cannabis and AML.
Yeah.
So one, it's not part of safe banking. Safe banking does not automatically cause uplisting, but it triggers them to it's not an option either. They have to rewrite FinCEN and AML based on safe banking passing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the step.
James Bond, to basically show that we're not a pumper podcast, I think this is a great question. Generally across the MSO space, I do not hear enough dialogue about how badly this can go for investors. The path ahead is very unclear. It's not a binary event. Rescheduling, banking reform could come through being a huge letdown. Possibility. You want to comment on that?
Sure.
Well, I've always said these are super, super high risk, very volatile stocks, right?
Yeah.
And look at the last 3 years. How much have we lost as a U.S. cannabis, even an index, or how much has the fund MSOS lost? Down 80% and so on. So that kind of risk is there, absolutely. Do I see a whole lot of downside from this point? My biggest point is that this industry is not going away. The train's left the station. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it employs tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Americans. So that's not turning back. These stocks were beat into the ground. So now I'm going to turn over to Anthony. Sorry, you were going to answer and I cut you off.
So, I mean, I tend to agree with him. I mean, I think, just to be blunt, we're in a lot of trouble if safe banking doesn't happen and rescheduling doesn't happen. Are the businesses going to go away? Absolutely not. I think we've seen fundamentals improve on these companies quarter over quarter and year over year for some time now. You've got markets such as Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, Florida. You've got growth catalysts for these companies. I mean, they're not going to go anywhere. The market's going to get bigger. The TAM's going to get bigger. The revenue's going to get bigger. But if we don't get this reform, at the end of the day, they're still working for the government, and that 280E is still there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of opacity around the sector.
Yeah.
Is the sector investable if we don't get rescheduling and safe banking? I would probably say no. It's going to be a very long waiting game. I mean, you saw Amazon stock after the tech bubble burst. I think it took 10 years for it to actually start moving to the upside. Am I positive that something's going to happen? No. Do I think that we're going to get nothing and be sitting here hat in hand by the end of the year? I don't think that either. I think we do get some sort of reform in this industry. Dan nailed it. Trains left the station. Cannabis is here to stay. I mean, you invest with caution. I mean, this isn't rainbows and butterflies and everything's just going to moon. That's never going to happen. I don't think anybody on this podcast has ever said that.
Yeah.
I don't really like to associate with people that have that point of view. And I mean, you kind of just got to know what you're getting into. It's an illegal drug at the end of the day, by definition, that we're investing in.
Yes.
Like, that in itself implies the amount of risk that we're taking by talking about it, by investing in it, by putting your actual money to work within it. So, I mean, it can only get better from here as far as I'm concerned.
HL Mencken, he's on a roll right now. The bifurcation Schedule 2 gang has entered the chat.
Bro, he's the best. He's unhinged. He's honestly my favorite follow on Twitter, hands down.
Investable, long waiting game, 10 years, dog. WTF? What do you think an investable TL is? Yes, he's got a lot of great comments on Twitter. I love the term too, Pumper Podcast. I hope you like that. This is a hot topic, that's for sure. But yeah, another one was, why does Chuck Schumer keep introducing MJ bills that nobody in the industry cares about? Writes Marcus Smith. Yes.
Very purposely.
That is by design. That is
one other good question from James Bond. Another question from James Bond. We talk about volatility, but let's talk about specifics. What if we get this bifurcation on rescheduling?
Can we talk about bifurcation?
Sure.
I think it has zero chance. I think it's a idiotic discussion that no one should consider.
Okay.
I don't think anybody serious has ever suggested that. What has always been said is that there has to be some clarification out of the Attorney General's office. Everybody remembers under Obama, we had the Cole memo. So right now we have adult use in 20-something states, and it's a big, big industry that is legal under state law. So all you have to have is a little bit of a clarification from the Attorney General that they're going to support states' rights, leave it up to the states, and have adult use eligible by state without being contrary to federal law like it is right now.
Yeah.
Bifurcation, saying the drug is one thing for medical, one thing for adult use. No, that's not possible.
Yeah.
Shane Pennington put out a pretty good response to that.
Who's that? Sorry.
He's Matt Zorin's partner with On Drugs.
Oh, I
he's one of the smarter guys in the space when it talks to the actual semantics and implications of what we're talking about from a legal perspective. But the bifurcation thing is one of the worst takes I've seen in this sector. To be completely honest, after reading that, I was kind of wondering what the fuck I was reading, to be completely honest. From a thematic sense.
Dan, I said it. Like, when's the last time we had a VP and president actually comment or actually send a tweet out on 420 at 420? I thought that was interesting. All other stuff, like, look,
that was big, but you're almost implying that they actually know how to use X and send out tweets themselves.
I get that.
Yeah.
But hey, they sort
I
of
also
approved it. Their office did it, which is still huge.
I also find interesting too, Dave Portnoy. That man likes to make money. That is for sure. So interesting that I know he's controversial to say the least. I'm not saying that cannabis is, dependent on what Dave Portnoy says and does in the acquisitions and basically partnerships that he makes. But I think that there is huge upswing potential. That's for sure pertaining to the industry. And we see it growing more and more and more. This has been awesome here today. I think we were originally thinking this was going to be just a short segment, but we hit, I think, the right narrative because at TDR, we set the narrative. And I think we did that today with what we discussed. But as usual, I appreciate you checking in on a Monday. Enjoy that lunch later this week and very much look forward to catching back up with you next Monday. And I don't know what you can and can't share, but I'm sure that in the media space, I'm going to ask the question. So you can let me know what you can and can't share, but best of luck.
I can do that.
All right. Also, shout out Narrative Gang.
Yes, I did see that.
You have no idea what I'm talking about. Just let it roll.
Okay, I'll let it go. Dan, appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys.
Later, Dan.
Well, that was a great conversation, to say the least.
Yeah, it's good. There's a lot of good comments, questions today.
Yeah,
that creates for good conversation.
Yeah. Oh man. This HL Mencken guy, I've seen him on Twitter, but yeah, he has got the best comments. Christian, I remember those days with only 10 viewers on this. Wow, what a journey. Now, that's for sure. Keep it going. That's for sure. Listen, as usual, keep those comments flowing. We appreciate it. Feel free to reach out. James Bond, honestly, log on anytime. I'm here to have, obviously, conversations at both ends of the spectrum. I think that's proper journalism, something we don't get in today's day and age. So we're not pumping at the same time, too. We're not trying to knock down the industry as well. Everybody has a voice. So give us all your opinions. Anthony, I thought you did a great job at addressing a lot of those questions as well. So leave comments, smash that like button, and we'll continue to push this CURA conversation moving forward. As usual, as I said before, please subscribe to our Baked In newsletter. We got all kinds of information pertaining to questions, rumors that we heard last week in Florida. That's included by subscribing to our Baked In newsletter. So make sure, leave that link below if you haven't subscribed already, and very much appreciate it. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll check back in with you, Anthony, on Wednesday.
I will see everybody Wednesday.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching our latest podcast. Lots of momentum building. You guys getting all excited? Leave comments below. Again, we want to take this viral. Smash that like button and make sure to click on that bell for all notifications as we start to bring on bigger and bigger guests. Don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, the Baked In newsletter, by logging on to thedalesreport.com. And we want to take this viral, as I said, and make this community grow. So make sure to subscribe on that channel because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks again, everyone, for watching.